Hi, this is Roger, thanks for dropping by. I know it says it's an unboxing video and it will be in a minute, but those with eagle eyes and large screens, just look at the sheer number of butterflies on the buddleia and flying all around me and all around the garden. This is a bumper year. There's more butterflies in the garden now than there was for the whole year last year. We're starting to get the variety as well. The trouble is, they land where they choose rather than where I want. I mean, on that up there's a comma and a peacock. There's another peacock there. There's a red admiral through there. There's more round the back, but if I walk round there, they'll all fly off. There's another red admiral up there. There's a large white up the back there, through the gap. It's just, and there's more around the garden. It's not just on the buddleia bush, although that's their main attraction. But yeah, I'm well impressed. Well impressed. It's just a good year, and then last year was just so bad. And although I won't be able to film them at the moment because they're not here, yesterday I had a small tortoiseshell and a painted lady, and those are the first I've seen this year. Last year I didn't see any painted ladies at all. But yeah, well pleased. Well pleased. It's just enjoyment, just sort of watching the flying around, and it's just nice to see. And it's difficult to get close. They fly off if you get too close. A nice fresh red admiral. That one hasn't been hatched out that long. A nice peacock here. If you stand very still, you can get quite close to them without them flying off. But sudden movements and they're gone. Another peacock up there. So yeah, the buddleia is really coming into its own this year, and there's two types in here. Well, obviously you've got the standard purple type one, and then you've got the other one. And this other one last year had a few blooms on, but I have never seen buddleia blooms this big. So obviously the feeding program has done wonders for that particular one, just in the sheer size of the blooms. Well impressed with that. The actual size of the blooms, just incredible. And you can probably hear there's bees buzzing and all sorts of things going on. So it's a much better year for things in the garden. Much better. Anyway, let's go and have a look at the new orchids. Okay, now there's two orchids in here. One is an orchid I saw at the NEC on a display, on an Orchid Society's display, and I made a mental note of the name. I thought if ever I come across that, I want it, basically. And then round on the Spice Exotic display, not their orchids for sale, their display, I saw it again. They had a different name. Well, I've since found out they're synonyms. It's one and the same thing. And I asked Susanna, have you got any more of those? And she said, well, we had some, but because they were in bloom, they were all sold out virtually immediately. But we have got some more coming in. But she said they probably won't be in bloom. So that's what I've got, one of those. So it was something I wanted, and we've got one of those. While I was in there, to take advantage of the single price postage, I found another orchid that I've been after quite a long time. The only place I can actually get it would be at Mather's at probably £200 plus. So as it was nothing like that and a normal priced orchid, I thought we'll have that while it's going. Well, I got an email saying that was out of stock. It became out of stock faster than they could update the website and all that sort of stuff. That happens. Would I like to order something else? So I quickly had a look through to try and find something the same price to save mucking about, you know. And I found something that's not something I would have normally chosen, but given the, not at the moment because of the heat wave, but given my normal cooler growing, this is a type of orchid that I ought to be giving a little bit more attention to, because the ones that are incredibly similar seem to be doing pretty good. So I thought we'll give it a try. Now I'm still struggling with my hand, it's still swollen, but the movement's back. Carefully, if I do any sudden movements or try and grab hold of something, then it hurts. And it's, as I say, it's still a bit swollen. The most noticeable place it's swollen is the gap between those two knuckles, which it's gone flat. That's what it should be like. So it's still not right. Lots of people seem to think it was a spider bite. We don't get those problems in the UK. So we'll try and use the scissors. As long as I don't try and squeeze too hard, it should work. Ow. Sort of. Yeah, we don't tend to get that sort of thing. I mean, in Australia, if it moves, it'll probably try and kill you. But we don't get those sort of problems. Now, there is an invasive spider in this country that's come over from the continent and has sort of established itself that is capable of biting. And it's said to be a bit like a wasp sting if one bites you. But the occurrence of humans actually being bitten by them is next to zero. You know, they're more inclined to run away, as are, no, I can't do that, as are most things in this country. If you try and get near them, they run away. That's just, I wonder if that would tear, because then I could just hold it. Yes, it will. Gotcha. Yeah, so it's highly unlikely to have been a spider bite. And the other thing you have to bear in mind, for it to have an effect and a swelling, it must have punctured the skin. I'm on blood thinners. If I get a hole, it tends to leak quite a bit. So if I had a hole on there, we'd see it. So it's still unknown what the hell it was, or still is, I suppose you could say. And I've still got no idea. I didn't bash it. As I said, if I'd bashed it, it would be purple and yellow. Again, blood thinners. But whatever it is a major inconvenience and could really be done without. So I don't want to put this on the floor. I've got to bend down and pick it up. Just put it in here temporarily until we actually find some plants. We've got some media all over the place. So some media's come out of the... They certainly do get through a lot of them. What's that? They certainly get through a lot of paper, don't they? And then when you find the green stick, you found a plant. Because what they do is they stake the plant, and they use a stake that's exactly the length of the box, and they wedge it in there so that it can't move. Now that's a really good idea. That works well. Right, so now as I say, the original order has had my original choice crossed out and my replacement written on by hand. So in adjusted order. As expected, nothing's in bloom. Both blooming size plants, but not actually in bloom. That was expected, so we're okay with that. Orchid Show and Trade Fair. I was born with Orchid Society's show. I already know that. And of course I'll be going. So first of all we'll have a look at the one the one I actually put the order in for in the first place. Now there's obviously not much to see, but I'll do pop-ups of what the blooms look like. Otherwise it's just a plant. But the first thing is it's a nice plant. Well, from what I can see, let me just get that out of the way for a minute. Let's see what we're doing here. Now that's the name of it. And for those of you who concentrated on my sort of words that I was saying while I was filming at the NEC, at the Gardeners World live event, you will remember me commenting on that orchid. That's one of its names. Seems to go under the guise of several different names, but that's the one most commonly used. And we've got to do battle with sellotape. Oh, it's got some real big fleshy roots. I want to try and do everything without using the scissors if I can, simply because putting my hands in the handles just hurts. So I'm trying to do without that at the moment. Oh, I'm going to have to use the scissors, aren't I? No, get away with it. Yep, we got away with it. Right, now, one thing I like is when I see a new orchid that's got some algae in the pot. It means it's been in there a while and not just been stuck in there. Right, so starting round here we have a new growth, yeah? Unlikely to be a spike because there's the spike from that bulb, so it has bloomed, blooming size. There's a spike being cut off there, there's a spike being cut off there and there. So nearly every bulb on this plant has bloomed, and we have another new growth starting here. We've got plenty of roots and it's currently in bark, which means it can stay in there for a bit. I'm not in any desperate rush. Now it could still be two plants, depends where it came from. I mean, Susanna orders in from, she does orders from the Far East and from South America, so depends where it came from, whether it's two plants or not. But it can stay in there. I see no signs of anything in that pot other than bark. Now I don't know how old the bark is or what the quality is, but it's quite hard. So it'll certainly do for now, and it'll do to allow those two new growths to mature and possibly bloom. So that's that one. And then the next one you wouldn't guess if you tried. Well, you might have done. I have put some clues out, haven't I? Good like that. So I'm trying to keep the non-recyclable paper separate, because that will go in a different bin. So then we're on to this one. Now this one we might have to play with. It depends. It's a hybrid. One of the species that went into this I know well, and I know people that have got them. And the other one I can't even remember, but that could be a hybrid, but it could be a primary cross. But I've got a feeling it's a species cross with a hybrid. But whatever it is, the flowers are incredibly unusual, if I ever get any. But there is a conundrum, because with this type of plant, sometimes the blooms come out the bottom of the pot. Sometimes they come out the sides. Sometimes they come out from the base of the plant on the top. And it depends on the type. So I've got to find out what type it is to find out whether it can stay in the pot it's in. Getting there yet? Any good guesses? Oh. I just hope it's a rooted plant and not a recent import, because these are a bit fragile at the best of times. Right, well it's in a solid pot, so depending on the results of my investigations it may well have to come out of that very quickly. But it looks to be a reasonable sized plant. It's had a few leaf chops. In fact, it's had quite a few leaf chops, so it probably had some brown leaf tips. That could have been transport. I'm just desperately trying to get this sellotape off without having to get the scissors out. If you're right-handed, have you ever tried using scissors with your other hand? It's not very easy, the light version, but I think we might have to try, because this is not going to come off. It needs to be sliced. Ow. Oh, I'm going to have to use the scissors. I should have brought a sharp knife in, shouldn't I? See if I can just hold them gently and... Ow! Come on. I think that's got it. Ugh. Now, the tissue paper holding the media in is absolutely soaking wet, which is good because this should never dry out. It'll be in moss, no doubt, and probably just in moss. Yeah. Right, so that's our plant. I am going to lift that out of the pot. Right, so we have a new root, an active root there. That may be the only one, but the chances are there's more. I'm not going to take the media off, not at the moment. What else have we got? That's a relatively new growth, so's that. There's a new growth coming up in the centre. Yeah? So it's actively growing and it has potentially some roots. Well, it's definitely got one. And that's the only one that's got down to the bottom of the pot. Now, it doesn't mean to say it's the only one though. I suppose you want to know what it is. What colour are ravens? Exactly. Vampira is the species that's gone in, plus whatever it was crossed with. And the pictures I can find on the internet of this cross, and there aren't many, show it being virtually black. Some of them have got markings, so it's faded away from black to show some veining, which is more like a Vampira would be. But we have a Dracula. Now I've got a Dracuvalia, so an intergeneric between Dracula and Masdevallia. That came from Lynn, that's a letter page. But this is my first pure Dracula. And if I'm relatively successful with this, I will get some more, because these are relatively easy for me to accommodate. They don't like bright light, so there's plenty of shady places in here. They like to hang, and they like open baskets. Yeah? So they like air around the base. That also allows flower spikes to get out sides and out the bottom if it's that type. So it will go in an open basket when I get the chance. I certainly wouldn't disturb it in this heat. That would be silly. So once we get, it's an autumn job really, and as it's in sphagnum moss it will stay damp, and I can visibly see how wet the moss is. I can't tell how old it is. Now these don't need big pots. I've seen these growing, you know, large specimen sized plants at Burnham's in pots only like 3 or 4 times the size of this. So they don't need a large amount of root room, but they do like their roots to be contained. So if your pot's not big enough to contain the roots and they start becoming aerial, you're probably going to lose the growing tips because they won't be enough humidity. So they need to go in a pot big enough to accommodate the roots, and that's all, no bigger. And they hang, so they can hang off the bottom of a shelf in a shady space. Yeah, so we'll see how it goes, but it's a nice green plant. As I said, it's had a few leaf chops here, here, and the very tip of that one. But as I said, that could have been transport damage. Depends how long this has been in this country. But yeah, so Dracula Raven. And it is what it says on the tin, virtually black. And our Oncidium, I've forgotten what it's called already. Sabine Mayer. With 2 new growths, good root system, quite a few real woody looking aerial roots. None of those have got growing tips, but there are roots in the pot that have got growing tips. And with 2 new growths coming, I suspect we'll get some new roots. We shall see. And it's a well-flowered size plant. As I said, there's 1, 2, 3, there's at least 4 old spikes on this plant, so it's a relatively mature plant, so we should get it to bloom. So there we go, 2 new orchids, and thanks to Zuza for letting me know that one of them was out of stock, and you know, doing a substitute for me. And also I ordered the original order was done in the middle of last week, and after I'd done it, I just thought, oh you idiot, what have you just done? You've just ordered relatively cool growing orchids in a heat wave. My order was held. My order wasn't even considered until this week. That's good stuff. So obviously it was posted. This was, the order was arranged, the substitute plant was arranged yesterday afternoon. And today it's here. It's a good service, isn't it? You know, when you complete an order after lunch on a particular day and it arrives lunchtime the next day. In fact, just under 24 hours for this to arrive since finalising the order, so well pleased with that. So there we go, 2 new orchids, and good stuff. And neither were what I would call cheap orchids, but I have to get that out of my head nowadays. There's no such thing anymore. There aren't any cheap orchids, they're just not there. The cheap orchids you can get sometimes are single peony bulbs, which you might pay like £12 or £15 for. And that sounds really cheap, but you're getting 1 bulb. And given that most bulbs are only they can only create 1 bloom, you're not really getting much for your money, are you? But yeah, there's very few cheap orchids around now. They're just not there anymore. And it's all the, you know, all the costs are going up and everything. I noticed today the UK inflation rate has shot up when all the time the government says they're bringing it down. Yeah. And for the last 3 months it's gone up. So well done. Is there anything they've done that's actually worked the way they said it was going to work? Yeah. Well, I didn't vote for them. As I said, I don't vote, it just encourages them. They're all as bad as each other. I wouldn't be able to pick one. Anyway, thanks for dropping by. Don't forget, within the next couple of days will be another members only video. So don't forget, you can become a member of this channel and get extra goodies where you get videos that are not generally available. You can join as a YouTube member. You can also join on the Patreon site, which is a more efficient way of making a contribution because they don't take very much. More comes to me rather than going to the company coffers, whereas YouTube take a very large amount. It's not far off a third, so it's more economical for the creators to actually join on the Patreon site. But you know, give it a thought. You get some extra videos, and they tend to be a little bit, you know, I tend to put a reasonable amount of effort into them. They're not just your daily run-of-the-mill type video, and they're for members only, and you get 2 a month depending on the level. Now the one that's coming up in the next couple of days is not for the basic level members, it's for the levels 1 up from there and onwards. So not quite so many members will get to see this one, but 1 a month is one of those types, and we'll see what we can come up with coming soon. And yeah, don't forget the old thumbs up, and I'll see you next time. Thanks for dropping by.